Canada has reached its highest level of deportations in a decade, reflecting a significant shift in immigration enforcement. Between January and November 2024, the Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA, deported 7,300 individuals, marking an 8.4% increase from the previous year and a 95% rise from 2022. The majority of those deported, approximately 79%, had their refugee claims denied, highlighting a stricter approach toward asylum seekers. This sharp increase in removals follows a surge in asylum applications, placing pressure on immigration authorities to process cases more efficiently. In response, the federal government has allocated 30.5 million Canadian dollar over 3 years to enhance deportation efforts and clear the backlog of pending removal orders. The rise in deportations is largely attributed to a growing backlog of asylum claims and concerns about fraudulent applications. Over the past few years, Canada has seen an influx of refugee claimants, particularly from regions experiencing political instability and economic hardship. While many applicants seek protection under Canada's refugee laws, a significant number are rejected after legal proceedings. The CBSA has been tasked with ensuring that individuals without legal status are removed promptly, emphasizing that deportations occur only after all legal avenues have been exhausted. Despite government assurances, critics argue that the deportation process lacks transparency and may put vulnerable individuals at risk. Human rights organizations and refugee advocates have raised concerns that some individuals are being removed from Canada while their appeals are still in progress. In some cases, deportees may face persecution, violence, or hardship upon returning to their home countries. Advocacy groups are calling for greater legal support for asylum seekers and a more compassionate approach to deportation policies. The stricter enforcement of immigration laws is part of a broader effort to manage Canada's growing migrant population and prevent potential abuses of the system. The government has taken steps to tighten entry requirements, enhance border security, and reduce the number of irregular border crossings. In addition to increasing deportations, authorities have launched awareness campaigns warning prospective asylum seekers about the risks of irregular migration and the challenges of obtaining refugee status in Canada. Officials stress that the country remains committed to supporting legitimate refugees, but must also uphold the integrity of its immigration system. The shift in immigration policy reflects broader concerns about economic sustainability and labor market needs. While Canada continues to welcome skilled workers and economic migrants, the government is taking a more selective approach to asylum claims. This policy shift has sparked debates among politicians, immigration experts, and human rights organizations. Some argue that Canada should maintain its historically welcoming stance on refugees, while others believe stricter enforcement is necessary to prevent system overload and maintain public confidence in immigration policies. The increase in deportations is also fueling political discussions about Canada's role in addressing global migration challenges. Asylum seekers often flee war, persecution, and economic instability, seeking better opportunities in Canada. However, the growing number of deportations raises ethical questions about the country's responsibility to protect vulnerable individuals. Some policymakers advocate for reforms that balance border security with humanitarian obligations, while others push for even stricter policies to limit asylum claims. As Canada navigates these complex immigration challenges, the debate over deportations and asylum policies is likely to continue. The government maintains that removals are necessary to enforce immigration laws and prevent system abuse, while critics argue for more transparency, legal protections, and safeguards for those at risk. The rising deportation numbers mark a turning point in Canada's immigration strategy, signaling a shift towards stricter border controls and enforcement measures. With immigration remaining a pressing issue, policymakers must find a balance between national security, economic needs, and humanitarian commitments. Hashtag Canada Deportations, hashtag immigration policy, hashtag refugee crisis, hashtag border security, hashtag asylum seekers, hashtag Canada border, hashtag immigration enforcement, hashtag CBSA, hashtag human rights, hashtag refugee protection, hashtag migrant crisis, hashtag deportation news, hashtag Canada news, hashtag immigration reform, hashtag refugee rights, hashtag Canada politics. Hashtag illegal migration, hashtag immigration debate, hashtag immigration law, hashtag migrant rights, hashtag border control, hashtag Canada refugees, hashtag asylum policy, hashtag immigration crisis, hashtag refugee support, hashtag humanitarian crisis, hashtag legal migration, hashtag deportation policy, hashtag Canada government, hashtag immigration challenges, hashtag global migration.
Thanks for watching our video. Please hit the button and subscribe the channel.